know that recently
In the recent past,
you've been on the receiving end of some physical activity, so I imagine you have some strong opinions about it. And I guess some of the instability tends to surround the Christian Muslim kind of dialectical in the park. That tends to be the debate that dominates, and so we are all, whether we are part of that or whether we are just outside of it, we all see it, and to some extent we're pulled into it occasionally. So it'd be interesting to get you guys' opinions on it. I think maybe given the recent events, perhaps we give you an opportunity to say how you feel acutely about the most recent situation, and maybe your view on it and your wider feelings.
So, as you said, we've been having these conversations, and we know that we've been predicting. Actually, it's a matter of time where something serious does happen, because the level of the level of tension that is building up in the park is not healthy. It's not good for discussion. It's not helping proper discussions taking place. You find insults being hurled across, and a lot of tension on both sides. And that has resulted in what happened last week is just again one of the symptoms. And if this is unchecked, it's going to become something even worse. There are lots of people who are watching, and they're forming their own opinions as well. And some of them might land up at the park and do something even more drastic. So we need to set the record straight. We need to lay the platform. What is freedom of speech? What are the limits? As my brother would say here, that there should be some limits for this freedom of speech, and what exactly constitutes a violation of this. In my personal opinion, I believe yes, there are two different things here. One is legally what you're allowed to do, and ethically your ethics. What is your ethics, and what you do according to the ethics. The ethics can stem from your own personal belief, or it could stem from your cultural beliefs or your religion. When it comes to legally, we are protected by the freedom of speech. We can speak about whatever we want to, sometimes even about religious figures. And I know that could stir up emotions on the Muslim side, talking about religious figures, talking about Christian figures. That happens all the time. So, in the West, they built up this resilience. So even if you talk about it, we've heard these arguments before, and they're more passive to it. But in Islam, it probably is something new, and that's why Muslims react a little more aggressively when they hear this. Especially, and I would say this on record as well, it's mostly the new Muslims who come here to the park. The regulars, they're used to, they know it. They've probably dealt with these arguments before. But when new Muslims come here, they hear Christians, or they hear arguments about Muhammad. Immediately that gets them triggered, and they want to do something. And many of them are visibly coming here for probably on a visit or something like that, and they get aggressive. Again, coming back to my opinion, Speaker's Corner is the bastion of free speech. Legally, they are entitled to speak or voice their opinion. And what I feel is, if you feel that you're too weak, you can't handle those arguments, and when you hear these arguments, you want to throw fists at somebody else, it's better those people stay at home. To the people who are here in the park and who can handle that argument, engage in a conversation. If the person is not willing to engage in a conversation with you, move away. I mean, we are adults here, and it doesn't make it seems more like your animal instincts get the better of you when we are trying to fight into raise fists or hurl abuses with each other.
Would you like to weigh in with your views?
I think generally the general atmosphere at Speaker's Corner has been great, generally. And the most people here in Speaker's Corner, most of them, including the regulars, they do not advocate violence. And if there's any chance of any kind of violence, I know for a fact, I have a lot of confidence, everyone will group together and stop that violence. Now, I have been part of solving violence issues, and this brother here is a Christian brother, supported me. You and I, myself, Cyrus, we got involved in situations that could have triggered violence. But the most of it, I don't think is that bad. But I think it's not that bad. Now, two things. I don't subscribe to the idea that religion is responsible for any kind of violence, whether in Speaker's Corner or otherwise. I think the violence is a human quality. Now, there's this sporadic thing where two people end up in a conversation, and in the spur of the moment, get heated, and it's get a little scruffling, and then they get settled down, and they make peace and they form back. But what I really want to talk about is the intent. There's an intent by some individuals to provoke, to incite, and to express a certain type of insult. And I feel that behavior is not religious, and I would argue it's not even legal, and I think it's not healthy. So if people come here for whatever religion you come from, religion or no religion, and you come with the intent, not sporadically, not randomly, but you come with the intent to insult and to provoke and to incite violence and hatred, which is very clear, and you and I know who those people are, I think this is what should be the main topic. Now, we're talking about freedom of speech, but you are a Christian, I am a Muslim, and my religion comes above freedom of speech. Now, I understand freedom of speech, but I don't understand it the way other people understand it, like yourself. Freedom of speech does not give me the license to provoke and incite hatred and violence. It does not give me that. I understand freedom of speech, but people cannot use freedom of speech as a license to provoke that. And that's what I want to challenge. That's what I'm here to challenge. And the question is, as the intent to insult people's prophets, any of the prophets, whether it's Muhammad, Jesus, Moses, Abraham, the intent to insult or provoke violence by that is a behavior, it's not Christian, and I don't even think that this behavior is supported by the law. So while we're talking about that, we have to address the cause and the intent. But I would always say, Cyrus, with all confidence, and correct me if I'm wrong, the random little heated arguments and the little heated pushing and scruffling, that gets resolved. That gets resolved. Most of us will not tolerate that. But what we see is a continuous, habitual intent to provoke violence and insult. And then some people now will come and say, that is freedom of speech. And that is what I'm here to challenge.
In terms of the point you make or the suggestion you raise about the legality of some of the things that are said here, I think if we were maybe 100 meters that direction, I think I would agree with you. I would agree with you wholeheartedly. I think Speaker's Corner, the lines tend to get blurred a little bit, and I think even in the eyes of the law, I could be wrong, but my understanding is that even in the eyes of the law, there is more flexibility for speech that one may find offensive in any other circumstances outside of the corner, because the corner has its own set of rules, I believe, even in legislation, that makes it a place where not only but you kind of have to be prepared to hear things that you might otherwise not hear somewhere else. And often you get tourists, and especially in the last couple of months with stuff like Winter Wonderland, or in the summer when we have festivals, you get much more foot traffic through the park. And I mean, sometimes you'll see people's eyes popping out of their head listening to some of the things that are getting said here that we hear every week, but they don't hear outside. So I think there is a slightly different threshold in the corner. My interest in particular is in the preservation of what we have here. This is a special institution, and it's something that we should all be mindful about preserving. And I agree with you to an extent. We, as participants here, we tend to police each other. We'll go around and, maybe where things are starting to bubble up, we can go and have a word in someone's ear and say, look, allowing this to escalate isn't going to be of benefit to anybody, and we kind of calm things down, or people have a word with themselves. But it feels like there's always something just simmering, just below boiling point, so to speak. And I think maybe calmer heads should prevail in these situations. And it's sad because sometimes it takes something to bubble over before there's a reset. But we don't want, and sometimes it's a chain reaction. You know, one event can lead to another, or retribution and so on.
That's
we need to bring that under control, right?
The number of events are actually going up. If you look at it in the recent past, there's been a number of events, and but before I go to that, just to second you, Speaker's Corner was formed, when people just before they were hanged, probably even for treason, they would come here to this place and they would give their final speech. And in their final speech, anyway, they're going to be hanged, so they could speak about just about anything, even treason, which is guilty of death. So that's the origins of this corner. So the tradition is that we could just speak about anything. And I agree with you. Sometimes when you speak, the intent could be wrong. Again, I do not want to judge anybody, and I've seen both on the Muslim side and on the Christian side there are people who say inflammatory things, right? So let me not judge their intentions, but let me say this: whether it's Christian or Muslim or whoever comes here and says something inflammatory, they have the legal right to. And that's something that we have to protect. I do not like it when certain people say something disrespectful of Christianity, but at the same time, that doesn't give me the license to get angry and to physically do something.
That's why I disagree with you. I'll tell you why I disagree with you.
Now, let me complete.
No, carry on.
Keep it in mind.
Yeah. So it doesn't give me the license to react physically with physical violence or incite violence, or even that's to provoke somebody else into violence. It doesn't give me the license to. Ethically, and you spoke about you appeal to religion. From a religious point of view, I know that as a Christian, that's not something we should indulge in. Again, I do not want to judge people's intentions. They might be doing it that way with the right intention. I do not know. They might be doing it with the wrong intention. That's up to them, right? Whoever you're referring to. And again, I'm saying it's on both sides. So the intention is something that they have to judge for themselves. But when it comes to the law, they have the right to go ahead and do it.
So what was it you disagreed with? I think you mentioned people have a right to say what they want, but they don't have a right to turn it into to respond physically, and you said you disagree at that moment.
Yes. Not just respond physically, even to incite, because that also happens. You see people inciting violence, saying things to motivate other people into violence. Last week, the same crowd that assaulted me, I saw physically, at least on 2 occasions, some people pushing others from behind into the Christian.
If you don't mind me interjecting, I think we'll get to the specifics of last week. Let's address the challenge, and then we can move it forward.
Yeah. This is where you and I strongly disagree. And where we strongly disagree is on 2 counts. Number one, we are talking specifically about Muslim and Christian tension that is often lead to some kind of physical assault or violence. And both Muslim and Christians, they have moral and religious responsibility, that is sanctity of life. We have that responsibility. Now, as a Christian, I strongly disagree with him off camera last week when he was talking about what caused the violence. And he was saying what caused the violence is protected under freedom of speech. Now, I condemn the violence, I condemn the aggression, I condemn the assault, and there's no excuse for it. I don't want that to get mixed up. There's absolutely no excuse for it. But what I find as a Christian or as a Muslim or anybody of faith, you have strong faith, you have a moral responsibility. Number one is anytime somebody intent, let me use this word intent. Intent means, in this case, week after week after week, month after month after month, you come in Speaker's Corner saying the same exact insulting thing. You refuse to preach your religion, you refuse to evangelize your belief, but you come here every day, you insult Muhammad, you insult Jesus, you insult Moses, you insult Abraham, and you use the foulest and vile language. Now, when that happens, if you defend that under freedom of speech, you're protecting that under freedom of speech, I'm saying that is not Christian of you. If I defend that vile, foul, provocation, week after week, month after month, continuously. If I defend that, that's not Islamic of me. Now, if I defend it, one day the consequences of that is going to fall on me. If you defend that vile, foul provocation, you defend that, one day the consequences of that aggression is going to fall on you. So what I'm saying, if we mentally say, we must prepare to accept this vile, continuous, deliberate intent to provoke hatred and violence. If we continue to defend that or kind of set a room or set the atmosphere, we accept this. If we do that, number one, that's not moral responsibility. Number two, that's not Christian, that's not Muslim, that's not religion. And if we do that, him, specifically to me, we, as a Christian, as a Muslim, he is not allowed to put freedom of speech above his religion. He's supposed to put his religion first, his religious duties and morals first, and freedom of speech in context with that. I'm not allowed to do that.
Let me respond to that.
Yes.
Muslims and Christians are two components of Speaker's Corner. But just to play devil's advocate, to play devil's advocate, this is not Muslim corner. This is not Christian's corner. So as a neutral to that particular dichotomy, I don't feel it's fair on people of other faiths or of no faith to come to a place which is renowned for protection of speech, to be dragged in or to be endangered because of this, this kind of adversarial approach that some Christians and some Muslims take to what happens here. Ultimately, I think the greatest influence on either the Christians or the Muslims will be the Christians and the Muslims themselves. So a Muslim may sit on one side of the aisle and decry the actions of the Christians, and the Christians may do the same. But ultimately, you will have a greater influence amongst the Muslims as a Muslim yourself. You will have a greater influence amongst Christians as a Christian yourself. So there is a lot of, inward looking that needs to be done as well. So I think this is a position that will never be resolved necessarily ideologically. Yeah, Christians and Muslims will always dominate the park, and will. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go. Because I agree with you, and I don't agree with you in certain aspects. Let me clarify why. So, as the brother said, so it's Christian and Muslims are just two components of the many different faiths that come here, and even the religious who come here, the atheists who come here. Now, if we are going to put limits on the freedom of speech, remember, freedom of speech can also turn against me. I mean, it gives the right to anybody, an atheist, to blaspheme my religion, right? It does. But if you're going to put limits on freedom of speech, you're doing that right in the bastion of free speech. This is the only place in the world that has this, this unique platform where you can come and speak about anything.
They tried this in some parts of the United States, which you would think, the land of freedom and liberty. The problem in the United States is people carry guns. And that's why it didn't work. That's why it doesn't work in the United States. So we have a unique set of circumstances.
And we should not do anything to kill that platform. Because we're using this platform for different reasons. And to say that there should be limits on the freedom of speech undermines the platform itself. Now, when you have the freedom of speech, there are going to be certain consequences. And if you can deal with those consequences, that's why I said, if you can deal with the consequences, if you can handle those consequences, that's when you can come here and use it. If you're not able to do it, then this is not the place for you, right? So I know a place where I'll be comfortable and a place where I'm not going to be comfortable. And it's up to me, if I go there, I have to respect those boundaries that are set over there. Here, there are no boundaries. Right? There are no boundaries in terms of conversation. So you can say whatever you want.
My response to that is that, number one, we don't want to... good things has been said. I appreciate the lovely contribution, and I agree with most of what you're saying. I personally, which you already know, maybe this is unresolved today, I find you come across more of a freedom of speech advocate than a Christian to me.
Let me
No,
give
no,
my
no,
Christian
one
perspective
second.
after that.
Yeah. First of all, so in these conversations, he come across as a freedom of speech,
Rather than Christian.
much more as a Christian. For me, I am saying these behaviors, they're not religious. They're not religious at all. First of all, they're not religious. And secondly, if there's a freedom of speech agenda, we have a moral responsibility to preserve the sanctity of life. And anything that violates that, that will trigger that, we have a moral responsibility towards human behavior. Now,
Yeah.
if it is that beliefs influence behavior, if that's correct, then the beliefs of the Christians or the Muslims who provoke the violence should be addressed. And I am saying, which is a conversation you would like to deny, I'm saying there's an intent that is continuous, that is very obvious, that is vile and provoking, inciting this violence. Now, you saying to me you don't want to judge. Now, you don't want to judge, and you don't want to judge intentions. Now, I am saying when an intention is manifest and it's continuous and it's not random, and every day you abandon teaching your scriptures and you just come in here, Muhammad is this, Muhammad is this, your mother is this, your father is this, because they know culturally people get sensitive about their mothers in this religion, and you want to provoke violence in order to prove my religion is violent. Now I'm saying to you, there are people who perpetuate those behaviors continuously. Now, if you raise the preservation of freedom of speech in that context, then you're culpable for the violence that happened here.
How?
I'll let you respond.
Go ahead.
No, I'll let you respond. I'll reserve my.
I'm saying,
yeah.
if one raises the flag of unlimited freedom of speech in a context where there's provocation that is continuous and deliberate and vile, and you raise that in that context, then you become culpable.
Right. So you're not. I'll respond to that. Right?
Yeah.
So again, I said when you have the freedom of speech, it comes with consequences, and this is one of the consequences, that you will probably aggravate somebody else. And I made it clear. People who are coming here should respect that this is a platform of free speech. And when you come here, you know that you could hear things which are going to get you agitated. Don't come here if you're going to get agitated. So if you're coming here, it means that you're going to keep your emotions in check. If you can't, then you should not come here. No, you appeal.
There's a gentleman.
Let me
I want to cite a case.
Let's have a
Case
conversation.
study.
No, let me finish this.
Carry on,
Let
sorry.
me finish this.
Carry on.
So, because you also appeal to the Christian side, and I didn't address that. As a Christian, I believe that we should respect everybody who is here, and that's what my faith teaches me, to respect, not to incite violence. That is my Christian faith. However, these are two separate things that we're talking about. One is the freedom of speech, the platform that is established here, because it's not just Christians who are coming here. As he said, there are other people of other faiths as well. And again, just to make it clear, if you can't keep your emotions in check because you're going to hear things which you do not like, if you can't keep those emotions in check, then this is not the platform that you should use. You can't come to the platform and say, no, I want it changed to suit my faith. You can't do that. This is a secular platform that was created for all of us. Let's use it,
Cyrus,
not misuse it.
You familiar with what the European Union says about freedom of speech?
No, I wouldn't cite.
I sent it to you in a text.
Right,
I remember we having a conversation,
right,
maybe sometime in the middle of last year,
right.
and you sent me a message on freedom of speech. And I said to you, according to the European Union, it said freedom of speech does not give a person license to provoke or advocate hatred or religious violence. And if someone was to be insulting Muhammad and trying and using that under the freedom of speech, it may work against them.
Yeah,
And
but in my
I
first
cited it to you.
But in my first contribution in this conversation, I drew a line between what happens out there and what happens here. And it's just my understanding, and I could be wrong, but this is my understanding, is that there are a different set of rules for this particular, whatever it is, square 100 meters or so. Before I ever came here, I familiarized myself with the style of debate by watching YouTube videos, yeah, the likes of which people are watching now. And I decided before I came that I have to come with my armor on. As in, if there is anything in my life that a conversation about can provoke me to a deeply emotional response, it's better I don't come. This is my personal view. And I always advise people, I invite people all the time, but I always add a caveat. If you're going to come, make sure it's on a day when you cannot be easily provoked by something you might hear somebody say, because when you come here, you're going to hear people say things that you will not hear outside.
Exactly.
And I just want to underline this by saying, this is Speaker's Corner. This is not Fighter's Corner. This is not...
Well said.
This is... That's kind of where I put it. I underscore that. Speaker's Corner. That means come here, say whatever you want. Be ready to be ridiculed if you say things that are insulting or if you go in to offend people intentionally. And I don't like it. I don't like it. I come here and I think it's important. Challenge people. Test the claim. Test the claim. But if you come here with the intention of offending people and upsetting people, it's poisonous. It's toxic. However, I don't feel that it justifies an escalation to a physical encounter. Don't get me wrong. It doesn't mean I don't understand it. But it's not a justification from my perspective. You used you said it's not Christian and it's not Islamic.
It's not.
But what argument would you make then to, let's say, an atheist who was saying similar sorts of things? Because you can't appeal to religion or faith in that situation. So how would you deter someone who doesn't share faith from saying those kinds of things? And sadly, it's Christians and Muslims saying the most offensive things from my perspective. But if you were to try to explain that to someone without faith, you can't say, well, it's not Christian, it's not Islamic. How would you justify censuring someone from saying what may be the most offensive things to you,
For example,
if they don't have faith?
if a person may not have faith or Abrahamic faith, I am 100% certain that person may be influenced through society and through history by some of the values coming out of faith. So we have moral responsibility. We have a duty of care. We have the sanctity of life. So you could be an imbecile or a retard. You will understand the sanctity of life has to be preserved. You know, and the question is, I would appeal to a person's humanity, his moral compass, and the sanctity of life. That would be my argument. And I don't know a human being in this world who will fail to understand the sanctity of life, because he has life and he wants his life to be sacred. He's not saying, come bulge out my eyes, dig out my nose. No, he would like to feel safe. And the safety he enjoys, other people has that entitlement as well. But so the question, that's how I will address it. But specific to the Christians and Muslims who have continuously been pursuing this path of aggravation and provocation, I think they have to appeal to their faith, go back to their faith, and also to be told that their behavior is not religious, it's not religious, it is bad character in the name of religion. It is bad character. And when you cannot find religion to support your bad character, you're going to use what next? Freedom of speech. And this is why I'm saying, point out to it. This is bad character and religion don't support it. Freedom of speech does not support, in my view, I might be wrong. Freedom of speech does not support giving anybody a license to provoke, to incite hatred, or to incite violence. It does not. That's my argument.
I strongly disagree here, because it's just coming back to the same thing. Now, again, let's freedom of speech.
That's what we're talking about. That's your response.
Right.
And this is a woman. It's a classic case.
Let me come to that.
Classic case.
Let me come to that.
It was kind of going both ways.
Let's differentiate this. Okay, so we have the freedom of speech, which we were talking about, and there's absolutely no room for violence or for punching or fisting porn or whatever. This is Speaker's Corner. Freedom of speech is one platform. You're appealing to the religious platform. Yes, as a Christian, I told you that we have moral responsibility. Our faith teaches us that we should not insult. We should treat each other, even our enemies, we should treat them with love. Having said that, how do I respond to this? Something which is just going on right now. Again, I said I cannot judge the intention. If the intention is bad, I have personally gone and spoken to certain people, asked them, "Is this what it is?" And they've completely denied it. They said no, that this is not what they're trying to do. They're trying to provoke Muslims into a conversation, or to provoke them into looking at their own.
Provoke them into a conversation.
No, I'm not talking about provoke them into getting aggressive. They're trying to provoke them into looking at their faith and looking at certain things. And then
And did you accept that excuse? Did you?
hold on? Let me finish.
All right,
Let me
okay.
finish. So, looking at their faith critically, provoking them into looking at their faith critically, and then understanding why they're saying it. You see? So sometimes it's like shock therapy.
Break that
That's
down
what-
to me. Break that down to me.
Can I,
Since you were
can-
speaking
do you
to them,
want-
can I
you were
interject?
speaking to them. Yeah, you were speaking to that person.
Yes.
They explained
You're
why.
talking about one person in particular, and I'm talking about the same person. So
Right.
that's it.
The question is, I'm asking
they're
you,
provoking
the person-
Muslims into looking into their religion,
provoking them to look into the
critically.
religion.
Provoking again. I'm not saying provoking aggressively. Provoking them into motivating them into looking.
Motivating now.
Well, let me play devil's advocate here a little bit.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
I think we've all been around the
Right.
block enough
Yeah.
to know that even you, and I know you've approached this conversation with sincerity, and because you want to try to build a pathway to a safer environment here.
Yeah.
But it's clear that there are a handful of people on either side of this
Right.
divide who come out, and we know who they are, and
Yeah,
they come
right.
out to provoke, because whether
Again,
we,
you're saying to provoke, and again, I use the word provoke, but I use the word provoke in a different.
I believe that
context.
even in some instances,
Yeah.
there is an intention to provoke a physical reaction. I think that's the.
I don't think somebody
I think
in
that's
their
the
right mind would say something to provoke a physical reaction. I don't
Really?
think somebody would do that.
I think that. I think
it seems unlikely.
Really?
from my perspective, I believe it happens.
Unless-
I think it's the vast minority of the time, but I think it does happen because what that does is it provides a gotcha moment. It provides a clip with which to villainize the other side. And I'm not saying. I think it happens on both sides. I'd rather now look for an opportunity to build, to find a positive, let's say, positive conclusion to the conversation.
Okay.
So I would ask you both, the Islamic and the Christian approach, when you see a conversation reaching a crescendo, reaching that boiling over moment, when it's coming, when you see it coming, what would be the Christian approach to that impending moment? What's the right thing to do from your perspective and from the Islamic perspective?
So, in fact, a little while ago, I think it was coming to that point just now. What I would do is go in and probably move away the person who is, offending the other, whether they are right or wrong. De-escalate the tensions. I think that's the first thing that we do. I already told you that I've spoken to the person about their intentions. What are the intentions? Is it to insult, or is it for something else? And clearly, what they say is, they want them to look at their own scriptures, to look at their own religion critically, and probably something positive comes out of
Let's
that.
not get hung up on a
Right?
specific
So, yeah.
a specific person.
Right. No, because we were talking about something specific.
I understand. That's what I'm trying to kind
But
of.
generally,
Yeah.
when we find a situation like this, I always go into de-escalate. And in fact,
You think that should be the approach?
that should be the approach. And in fact, on Sunday, the last Sunday, that's
and you say
exactly what happened.
no matter who's right or wrong.
No matter who. Again, because the freedom of speech. Tomorrow it could be a Muslim, a Christian might be attacking. Though I've never come across something like that, but I would do the same thing. If a Muslim is getting attacked, this is Speaker's Corner. They have the right to speak whatever they want to, and it should be people like us to de-escalate the violence. No, they have a right to say it, even if it's insulting.
So
Yeah.
I know you say it's not for you to judge the intent necessarily, but even where you feel that there is a chance that there is an intent behind it, or
So what if I feel the intention is wrong? Yes, it's my duty as a Christian to go and correct my brother.
Thank you.
If they do not listen, I leave it up to them, because there's nothing more that I could do. Then the only thing that I can appeal it to is the freedom of speech.
okay,
Right.
and I'd like your view on it as well. The Islamic approach to when a situation between a couple of people is starting to build up and starting to reach boiling point. What is sound Islamic advice? How should a Muslim be thinking in that moment when he or she sees the impending escalation potentially to violence? what should be the approach in an environment like this?
I think first of all, I am fully aware that there are people in this park who, before they come to the park, they take a drink of alcohol. I've seen people.
No, you.
Just a minute.
This is an
Excuse me.
allegation, right? So-
Excuse me.
He's not saying anyone
Excuse me.
in particular.
First of all, I'm not calling names, and secondly, I'm giving my testimony. Whether you like it or you don't like it.
Have you seen? No,
Excuse me.
it could
Excuse
be-
me. Excuse me. I shall repeat myself. I'm giving my testimony of what
Okay.
I know and what
Okay.
I've seen myself.
You weren't interrupted, so let's
Right.
move it.
So let me make that clear to you, sir. And I'm saying 100%. I have seen people right in this park who are preachers smoking weed, who are known preachers smoking weed, and I've seen people in this park drinking alcohol while they come in here on their way here. So there are people in this park who drink alcohol, who consume intoxication, weed, and there are people in this park here who have mental health issues. Right. Hence the reason why it is dangerous and to some extent hypocritically deceitful to pretend you're breaking up a fight when in the first place the cause of that fight you're not proactively challenging it. As a matter of fact, you're making excuses for that in the name of freedom of speech. So if a person is perpetuating a behavior, a manifest, continuous, intent, well-intended behavior that is inciting violence in a place where people have mental health issues, where people drink alcohol, smoke weed, I've seen and I know that fact. He's trying to deny it, and I know why he's trying to deny it. I know why.
I'm not
But
trying to
anyway, this is my testimony. Right. Now, the Prophet, peace be upon him, says, "Inna sidqa yahdi ilal birri," that truthfulness leads to righteousness. Wa innal birra yahdi ilal jannati, and righteousness leads to paradise. And this is a conversation we have, the part of truthfulness. And in the name of truthfulness, there are people in this park, mental health issues, drinking alcohol and smoking weed. So if someone is inciting continuously violence, hatred, and provoking in an atmosphere like this, and we are not proactive in one sense, we're quite happy because it's given a dig to the other side, we're encouraging it. So it's hypocritical to try to break up fights or try to reconcile fights or stop fights. So my thing is this: first premise is when you come to Speaker's Corner, you might be talking to someone appear to be normal and functional. You don't know. He could have alcohol in his breath. I've seen people here who swore and say nasty things against Prophet Abraham. And when I'm trying to engage him, he's have a sip. It was vodka he was drinking. I've seen that right here. So be mindful that when you're provoking that, it might people here with mental health issues, drinking alcohol, intoxicated. That's number one. Or they come from a culture that to insult their mother is on. It's fine. Or to insult the Prophet in that nasty way is fine. So number one. Now, as for the religion now, hear what the religion says. Allah make it very clear.
Yeah, I want to push you to answer my question.
Yes, I'm going to answer it now.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
Allah make it very clear that when you come in contact with a jahil level of arrogance and insult, who insulting Allah.
Jahil means ignorance, right?
Yeah, it's a degree of behavior. Right. So it doesn't mean the ignorance that is innocent, like a child is innocent ignorance. Doesn't know, but it's innocent. Right. It's talking about a type of behavior that is intent to be rebellious and to provoke violence and disharmony. Right? Whenever you come in contact with a jahil behavior, Allah says, move away. Turn away from the jahil. He says, give them salams and move away. Right. And the Prophet, peace be upon him, talk about the reward for making peace between people. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Quran, and when somebody approach you with a bad behavior, repay them with something far better. Give them better words.
Kill them with kindness.
Right. Now, a lot of Muslims here that I've seen doesn't understand that the Prophet, peace be upon him, says, majority of my nation will enter paradise through they believe in Allah and they have good character. And many of my people are still trying to develop their character. So a lot of people come here for the engagement, but they're not religious. And they're not fully developed in their religious character. So when they engage, the character comes out. So if you're evangelizing or you're preaching, a lot of things that you have about your character reveals through that. So number one, good character is very important, and this is the command of Allah. Whenever you meet a jahil behavior, give salam, say peace, and I move away. Until they return back to something that is respectful, cordial. But what I'm saying is hypocritical not to be proactively addressing the continuous and deliberate insult and provocation, and then when a fight comes, you want to break it up. Doesn't make sense.
Can I respond? So what he was talking about is and this is your testimony, and I'm not going to deny anything about it. I've never seen that. But yes, I have seen people in the park, and I'm not going to comment whether they're Muslims
How long you been
or
coming here?
Christians. 1.5 years now.
Right. And
Right.
it never
I've seen
occurred to you
people in the
people-
park.
Christians or Muslims here might be intoxicated. That never occurred to you.
I have seen them taking weed.
Taking
I've
weed.
seen them taking weed. I'm not talking about. Again, I'm not coming into religion here because I do not want to blame one side because I've seen.
This is
people.
not about side.
Yeah,
The-
again,
the fact of the
yeah.
matter
So,
is,
yeah,
you were
there are
challenging
people-
me when I was talking about
There are
people
people
here who
with mental health
intoxicated.
issues.
Yes.
They're on both sides. There are people who have taken weed on both sides. I've seen that. Alcohol, I've not seen, so I cannot comment on it. And regarding Christian preachers who have done it, I can't comment on that. Now, again, when we are talking about the freedom of speech, right, and the platform, this platform, which has been given, which is, for the freedom of speech, there are no conditions which are set. You should not come in after drinking alcohol, or you should not come in. Anybody can come in and use the platform, right? If it gets out of hand, it's people like you and me who are mature enough to step in and de-escalate the situation. That's what we're called to do. I'm not sure why you're calling that
I saw-
hypocritical.
okay.
I'm not sure why you're calling that hypocritical. That's what you're supposed to do because there is no entry
I want to cite
requirements.
an experience. There's a particular individual. He was smoking, and I went in. I said, "Brother, not here, please." The conversation here is a godly conversation, and the behavior here. And I pulled it, and he went across there. He went by Sheikh Umar down there, and he went and do it. So I'm saying there's a moral responsibility. Now there's no law. He's not
that's something
compelled.
that we
Yeah,
do,
but
but you do not comment on.
let's not get sidetracked. The last,
Yeah.
okay, so for example, the incident you were involved in last week, and also a couple of weeks prior to that, there was some very dangerous language used, let's say, alluding to violent response. None of the people involved in that, as far as I'm aware, were under the influence of substances or alcohol
Exactly.
or what have you. So we have an issue with people who are completely sober as well.
Completely normal. We're
So
doing this.
what I'm trying to find is the right approach from the respective faiths in how to de-escalate that moment. Let's deal with that moment, and then we can attack the root causes, perhaps in a more holistic way.
Number one, take off the cameras. As soon as they start getting really bad, take off the cameras, number one. And number two, more importantly, those like yourself who, when a violence may want to trigger off, you will raise the question of freedom of speech, right? So for example, if someone is insulting your mother and he's saying the most atrocious thing to your God, whoever your God is, right? And that's getting you agitated, I will say to that person, freedom of speech, this speaker's corner. I wouldn't say that. That's irresponsible. That's insightful. But what I would say to that,
Yeah, please.
I think
Go ahead. Just
I think
concluding,
I
actually.
think we'll leave it. Yeah, we'll keep it at 3, and then I'll come and grab you for another conversation shortly.
so the question in that moment, I'll tell you what I will not say. If someone is insulting your God and your mother, or the things that they know is dear to you culturally, that they should not insult, and they're poking that to get a violent reaction, then to say, his religion is violent. If someone is doing that, I will not go at that moment and say, freedom of speech, you have a right.
I didn't advocate it at that moment.
Sorry, I'm just drawing a scenario. I would not do that. But what
Yeah,
I
right.
would do is to say to that person, if he's a person of faith, I would say something to him based on his faith that compels him not to provoke. So there are lots of things in the Bible, and you can teach me, you know more than me, about against provocation. Provocation is against the law. You know that very well.
Right.
And aggravating and insulting people, and the role of compassionate speech. So there's a lot of things from the scriptures that can stop individuals from behaving a certain way. Now, even those
Question to you.
No,
What
I'm
do
gonna
you
finish
term
now.
as provocation?
Now, now, these terminologies that is in the Bible, why is it even Cyrus, who is not a Christian, is not aware of these terminologies? That provocation is against the law, and all the different
I'm sure he's
cited. No, he's not. I'm telling you.
Isn't it an insult to say Jesus is
right. That's why I'm asking him. What is provocation?
not provoking
So
Christians.
because
I think I'll call it a day now.
we come to
I think there's much more to unpack from this topic, and I think it's a worthwhile conversation to continue at some point. And I think we've got a lot of fruit out of it so far. And yeah, I thank you for participating and increase the peace.
Increase the